Massive day for the unemployed. Because last week, China released an AI called Kimi K3 that matches the smartest American models ever built, the ones from OpenAI and Anthropic, the ones you were told were too dangerous for ordinary people to touch. And then China did the one thing those companies cannot survive. It gave the whole thing away for free. Right now, OpenAI and Anthropic are in full panic mode. Microsoft is doing maths it was never supposed to do. Google just posted a number it has not posted in 22 years. And Washington is screaming the word theft at the top of its lungs. Let Meerkat explain. But first, Meerkat owes you an apology. Meerkat swore he was done with AI videos. He said his piece, he made his peace, he took up birdwatching, he bought the little vest, he bought the enormous binoculars, he had seen 4 birds, and honestly, 2 of them might have been the same bird. Then last Thursday, Meerkat logged into his birdwatching forum, a sacred place where grown adults argue about whether a smudge is a warbler, and the entire front page was on fire about a Chinese AI called Kimi. The warbler thread was dead. The pinned post was a benchmark chart. When the lads with spotting scopes and thermos flasks are arguing about Chinese open-source language models, something enormous has happened. So Meerkat hung up the vest, brewed a pot of tea strong enough to violate several treaties, and read everything. Meerkat has not seen a bird since, but he did find the answer. It comes down to 3 parts. Part 1. China built a monster and left it on the doorstep. Part 2. The panic, in which the biggest companies on Earth lost their minds in a single week, wave by wave, and Meerkat has the receipts for every wave. And Part 3, the part you actually came for. Why this is the pin that pops the whole American AI bubble, and why the only creature who wins this story is you. Yes, you. The one watching a cartoon Meerkat instead of applying for jobs. Settle in. It is not as if you have anywhere to be right now anyway. Let's start with Part 1, the monster on the doorstep. July 17th, a leaderboard called the Front-End Code Arena updates its rankings. This is where the world's AI models compete at writing real code, the single most valuable thing these machines currently do. And sitting at number 1, above Claude Fable 5, above GPT 5.6, above every American model that $1 trillion of spending produced, is a model almost nobody in the West had heard of 2 months ago. Kimi K3, built by a Chinese lab called Moonshot. And this was not a photo finish. K3's previous version was ranked 18th. The new one jumped 17 places in a single release and landed on top of the entire industry. 17 places. Sit down. Now what actually is this thing? Let Meerkat translate because the official description sounds like a robot sneezing. K3 has 2.8 trillion parameters. A parameter is a tiny knob inside the machine's brain, and this brain has 2.8 trillion of them, which reportedly makes it the largest open model ever released by anyone. It can hold 1 million tokens in its head at once, meaning you can hand it an entire library and it reads the lot before answering. And it runs on a trick called Mixture of Experts. The brain contains 896 specialists, but for any single question, only the 16 relevant ones wake up and do the work while the other 880 have a lie down. Meerkat has worked in offices. This is the most realistic thing about the entire model. But the specs are not the story. Here is the story. On July 27th, 3 days from now, Moonshot releases the weights. The weights are the brain itself, not an app you rent by the month, not a website that reads everything you type into it, the actual brain, downloadable, copyable, yours forever. Now be sensible, you are not running a 2.8 trillion parameter monster on the gaming laptop you bought for one game you never finished. This thing needs a warehouse of serious chips, but a company can run it, a country can run it. And once you run it on your own machines, 3 magic things happen at once. Nobody spies on what you feed it, nobody charges you by the word, and, say it with Meerkat, regular viewers, nobody can ever switch it off. Remember the off switch? The letter that arrived at Anthropic in June? The night the best American AI went dark for most of the planet, and France and Germany and Britain all learned the same lesson at once, that American intelligence comes with a kill switch, and America is holding it? Meerkat told you to remember that because it was about to matter. It just mattered. Every government and boardroom on Earth spent the last month shopping for AI that cannot be confiscated. China heard all of it, waited 3 weeks, and left the robot on the world's doorstep with a bow on it and a note reading, "No charge, no off switch, enjoy." And the world did not politely decline. Within 48 hours of launch, demand for K3 was so violent that Moonshot ran out of computers. They stopped taking new paying customers entirely and posted a public apology about protecting capacity for existing members. Read that again slowly. The Chinese shop giving the product away had a queue so long they had to lock the door. In an industry where American giants spend billions on sales teams begging enterprises to please use more tokens, Moonshot's problem is too many customers. When was the last time you queued for anything American AI made? Actually, when was the last time you queued for anything except the job center? Take your time. Meerkat has tea. And here is the detail that should make you properly angry. For the past year, the loudest voices in American AI told you frontier models were too dangerous to hand over, too powerful for the common man. That is why the weights stayed locked, why access came through their servers, at their prices, for your safety, you understand. Then a Chinese lab matched the dangerous, precious, world-ending capability in a matter of weeks and handed it to everyone on the planet for nothing. So either the danger was wildly oversold or the safest hands in the world just got outrun by a lab you had never heard of. Neither answer is great for the people charging you $200 a month. Now, to be fair, and Meerkat is always fair, even when it ruins a good story. Is K3 actually the single best AI on Earth? No, and Moonshot themselves admit it. Some of those chart-topping numbers were reportedly produced using Moonshot's own testing harness, while the American models ran in different ones, which is a bit like grading your own homework in your own handwriting. On the hardest exam in the industry, K3 still trails the top American brains by about 10 points. One independent measurement reportedly caught it inventing facts at a genuinely alarming rate, and it rambles, producing far more words per answer than it needs, like a student padding an essay, or Meerkat's uncle after 2 sherries. So no, K3 is not the champion, it is something much worse for America. It is nearly the champion, at a fraction of the cost, and free to own. Because here is the question that decides everything. Do you need the smartest brain in human history to answer customer emails, summarize meetings, and sort invoices? That is what companies actually use this stuff for, the boring miracle of paperwork. You would know this if you still had a work email. Nobody hires Einstein to run the filing cabinet. If the free brain gives you 90-something% of the intelligence for roughly none of the price, the champion's trophy is a very expensive shelf ornament. Hold that thought, because in part 2, the biggest company on Earth does exactly this maths in public, about its best friend. Quick pause. Why should you care? Yes, you, the one who thinks a diversified portfolio means owning both flavors of instant ramen, because you are invested in the other side of this fight whether you know it or not. If you have an index fund or a pension left over from the job you used to have, the biggest holdings inside it are Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, Meta, and Amazon, and those 5 have transformed themselves into one gigantic bet that the world will rent American intelligence at American prices forever. So when Meerkat tells you a free Chinese brain just attacked the pricing of the entire American AI industry, that is not tech gossip. That is your retirement number being shot at. Keep watching. Part 2. The Panic. To understand the panic, you need to understand the week OpenAI and Anthropic were having before K3 landed. It was their victory lap. Fable had been rolled out with magazine covers, podcast tours, and that special breathless press tone normally reserved for moon landings. The message was simple. This is the frontier. This is why the subscriptions cost what they cost, why enterprises must sign the big contracts, and why the world will pay American companies forever. The story was airtight. Then a lab most Americans could not name matched the homework in a few weeks and started handing it out like supermarket samples. What followed was the worst single week in the short history of the American AI business. The panic came in 4 waves. Watch them roll in. Wave 1, Microsoft. The information reported that Microsoft, OpenAI's biggest backer, the landlord of this entire era, is adding Kimi K3 to its Azure cloud. Fine, cloud providers host everything. But the report goes further. Microsoft's engineers are testing whether K3 can power features inside Copilot, its flagship AI assistant, features that currently run on OpenAI and Anthropic models. They have reportedly tested other open models too, including DeepSeek. This is not window shopping, this is measuring the curtains. The reported prize, savings of up to 60% per token. On every $1 billion of inference spending, that is $600 million back. And if Microsoft self-hosts the brain after the 27th, the cost falls even further. Let that land properly. Sam's own landlord is pricing up the shop across the road, and the shop across the road is free. When your biggest investor starts a spreadsheet about replacing you, that is not a partnership anymore. That is a hostage writing his own ransom note to save the kidnapper money. Wave 2, the customers. A chart went around last week from OpenRouter, which routes AI traffic worldwide. For the first time ever, Chinese models are being used more than American ones. Global usage, week by week, climbing since DeepSeek kicked the door in last year, crossing the line in early July. Not a forecast, not a promise about a future that is permanently 18 months away. Usage measured today. The customers are already walking, and they are not walking toward the trillion-dollar toll booth. Wave 3, Google. The same week, it emerged that Google is cash flow negative for the first time in the 22 years since it went public. Google, the money machine of the modern internet, the company whose entire personality is printing profit while you sleep, is now spending more than it makes. over $200 billion going out the door this year on AI infrastructure and data centers. The stock slid after hours, and analysts reportedly say Google has to ship a genuinely competitive model within a quarter, or investors start asking the question no executive survives. What exactly did all that money buy? 22 years of never running dry, ended by an arms race against an opponent who gives the product away. Sensational. And Wave 4, Washington. Washington did not take it well. Days after K3 topped the charts, a senior White House tech official announced the government has information that Moonshot built K3 by distilling Anthropic's fable. Distilling, let Meerkat translate, because it is the key to this whole saga. Training a frontier brain from scratch costs billions. You are teaching it everything about the world the hard, expensive way. Or you skip all that. You ask the expensive American tutor millions of questions, write down every answer, and use that pile of answers to train your own tutor at home for pennies. Copying the homework, industrialized. The official claims Moonshot built a covert platform for it, switching access methods to dodge detection, and even got its paws on restricted American ships through Thailand. He called it large-scale, covert industrial distillation. The State Department piled on, calling the whole affair a heist of American intellectual property and declaring that lying, cheating, and stealing is not innovation. There are now reportedly serious calls to entity-list Chinese labs and ban their models from America outright. The betting markets put the odds of a full ban around 29%. Now Meerkat must pause, because the outrage deserves a moment of appreciation. The American AI industry, which trained its models on every book, every newspaper, every forum post, and every deranged blog humanity ever produced, largely without asking a single author, is now clutching its pearls because somebody may have trained on its own outputs. The lads who ate the entire library are filing a complaint about someone photocopying their notes. Meerkat is not saying Moonshot's hands are clean. If the distillation claims are true, that is properly cheeky and possibly illegal. Meerkat is saying that when two students who both copied are pointing at each other in front of the class, the teacher does not usually respond by giving either of them $1 trillion and a protective tariff. And the panic reached the investor class too. David Sachs, a man deep inside both tech and the administration, posted that a Chinese model taking #1 is exactly how America loses the AI race, while American politicians tie the country in knots with data center bans, state regulations, and proposals for federal agencies to pre-approve models before release. Whatever you think of the man, the argument lands on a real nerve. One country is racing, the other is holding committee meetings about the racing. And who is asking for those committee meetings? Well, the frontier labs themselves have reportedly become some of the loudest voices for rules, licensing, and gatekeeping, with one OpenAI policy figure arguing that open-weight models actually slow progress down. What? Bro. Open models are currently the fastest moving thing in the entire field. That is the whole reason everyone is panicking. Saying they slow things down is like arguing free bread is bad for the sandwich industry. And Meerkat has heard this song before. In the 1990s, Microsoft's boss famously branded Linux, the free open-source operating system, a form of communism and a threat to innovation itself. Linux went on to run basically every server on the internet and most phones on Earth. The company that fought free software lost so completely that today it is downloading the free Chinese model to save $600 million per billion. History does not repeat, but it absolutely points and laughs. And while Washington screamed theft, Beijing cleared its throat and gave a speech. At a World AI conference by the Huangpu River, China's leadership stood up in front of the planet and positioned itself as the loudest champion of open, shared artificial intelligence alive. Steam engines began the industrial age, electricity lit the modern world, the internet connected it, and AI is the next one, too big to belong to anyone. The speech called for open source and win-win cooperation, warned against one country stretching national security to smother everyone else, and then started handing out gifts. 5,000 AI training placements for developing countries. Cooperation centers across Asia, Africa, the Arab world, and Latin America. A free AI weather warning system for 30 nations. A new international AI cooperation body headquartered in Shanghai, pitched as the United Nations of AI. And a proverb for the road: a single string cannot make music. Meerkat is not telling you China is a saint. That flag-wrapped robot has a painted-on smile. And free is never just free. Free is a weapon. Every company that downloads K3 is a company that stops paying San Francisco. And China does not need your subscription money. It needs Sam to run out of it. Handing out samples until the shop across the road goes bust is the oldest trick in retail, and the speech about sharing is the trick wearing a lovely suit. But look at the picture from the outside, the way France sees it, the way Brazil and Indonesia see it, the way your own finance director sees it. One side is giving away powerful tools and funding training for poor countries. The other side is switching things off, demanding bans and asking its own government to protect its prices. You do not need to trust China for 1 second to notice which side is behaving like it is winning and which side is behaving like it is cornered. Cornered animals ask for regulations. Winning animals hand out samples. Part 3. The pin. Right? The part you came for. Why does one Chinese model pop the American bubble? Because Meerkat is about to do something dangerous. He is going to steelman OpenAI and Anthropic, make their argument better than they make it themselves, and then show you the exact sentence where the whole thing falls off a cliff. Belief 1. To build the next giant model, we must sell tokens, the little units of AI words, at a fat markup, because frontier training runs cost tens of billions of dollars. Is that true? Yes. Completely true. No markup, no war chest. No war chest, no next model. Belief 2. If someone releases a nearly as good model for free, our fat markup dies, because no sane customer keeps paying champagne prices next to an open bar. Also true. Painfully, provably true. Microsoft's 60% spreadsheet is belief 2 arriving in real time. Businesses were already furious about paying fortunes in tokens for returns nobody could measure. Meerkat made a whole video about it. K3 did not create that anger. It handed the anger an exit. Belief 3. Therefore, if we, the American labs, cannot fund the next big training run by marking up tokens, then nobody at all can fund one. Progress itself stalls, and so the government must protect our markup from open source, for the good of humanity. And there it is. That is the sentence. Read it twice. Beliefs 1 and 2 are maths. Belief 3 is a hostage note. It only works if selling marked up tokens is the one and only business model in the history of software. And friend, it is not even in the top 10. Software has been monetized 1,000 ways for 50 years. Sell the tool, sell the seat, sell the outcome. And the biggest prize of all, workplace automation, actually doing the jobs rather than selling the words, is barely touched. Cheap intelligence does not make that money vanish. It makes that money enormous. Every dollar shaved off the cost of intelligence is a dollar of margin for everyone building on top of it. The same way the money moved from the companies laying internet cable to the companies building everything cheap internet made possible. The value does not die. It moves. So when a company says, in effect, we do not have a business unless we can charge 10 times the cost of the thing, Meerkat has hard news. That was never a business. That was a toll booth, and China just built a free bridge next to it. You cannot ban the bridge. You cannot uninvent the bridge. You can only stand in your little booth, watching the traffic stream past, writing increasingly emotional letters to Uncle Sam. And Uncle Sam already tried protecting an industry from open source once. Ask Linux how that ended. Better yet, ask Microsoft. Actually, do not bother. Microsoft is busy downloading the Chinese model. Now zoom out because you have seen this exact film before, on this exact channel, twice. A new technology arrives, real and wonderful. A flood of money chases it. Supply gets built years ahead of what anyone will pay for. Then the price of the thing collapses, and the collapse crushes the very profits that attracted the flood. The railways were real, the railway investors were ruined, and Britain kept the tracks. The internet was real, the fiber companies were ruined, and the world kept the cables and got cheap internet forever. The pattern is not a curse on the technology, the pattern is the technology succeeding, just not for the people who paid for it. American AI spending is now approaching $1 trillion a year on one single assumption, that the world must rent American intelligence at American prices, forever, with no alternative. K3 week was the moment that assumption stopped being arguable. The price of intelligence is not going up. It is going through the floor, and the robot is down in the basement with a nail gun. Does the bubble pop tomorrow? No. And Meerkat will keep being honest even when the thumbnail is dramatic. Bubbles float long after the logic dies. That is what makes them bubbles and not maths. The giants are still monstrously profitable, the technology is still real, and nobody, not Meerkat, not the analysts, and especially not the CEOs, knows the date. But you know what to watch for, because Meerkat told you before. Not an explosion, a sentence, some random Tuesday earnings call, some CEO clears his throat and says, "We are moderating the pace of our investment." 8 boring words. That is the pin. And this week, you watched the rough drafts get written. Microsoft's Copilot spreadsheet is a draft of that sentence. Google's first negative year in 22 is the pen being picked up. So while you wait, here are 3 things to watch from the couch, which is convenient because the couch is where you conduct most of your affairs. 1. Watch Microsoft's next earnings call like a hawk, or like a birdwatcher. Meerkat can now recommend the binoculars. If Copilot's Chinese experiment becomes official policy, that is the biggest AI customer on Earth publicly announcing the toll booth is optional, and every CFO on the planet gets permission to do the same maths that afternoon. 2. Watch what Google ships in quarter 3. They have one quarter to justify a $200 billion year, and in this market, merely excellent already gets companies taken behind the shed. 3. Watch the price of tokens itself. It was falling before K3 arrived. After the 27th, when the weights are loose in the world and anyone with a data center can serve the model, that price has exactly one direction available. Every percent it falls is the sound of the story deflating in real time. And when the pop finally comes, here is the ending nobody on television will say out loud. The technology survives. The models will still be sitting on hard drives all over the planet where no letter from any government can reach them. The data centers will still be standing, and the settlers will buy them for pennies from the pioneers who will be busy writing books about resilience. And the price of intelligence, the thing that was supposed to make 5 companies richer than nations, falls toward the price of electricity instead. The investors who paid champagne prices at the top lose their shirts, as they did with the railways, as they did with the fiber. And the actual winners of the entire artificial intelligence era turn out to be the people who never funded a single data center and simply woke up one day in a world where intelligence costs about as much as boiling a kettle. That is you magnificent freeloader. You have never won anything in your life. Your fantasy football team came 9th, and you are about to win the biggest technology fight in history by doing what you have always done best. Absolutely nothing. You have been in training for this your entire adult life. Meerkat is not telling you to buy anything, sell anything, or download anything, least of all a 2.8 trillion parameter Chinese brain onto your mom's laptop. Meerkat is not a financial advisor. Meerkat is a small animal with a whiteboard, a tea dependency, and a bird-watching vest gathering dust by the door. Please do not sue Meerkat, do not entity list Meerkat, and if anyone asks, the 4 birds were lovely. Like, subscribe, and Meerkat will see you at the pop.